Imagine you get an email from a friend, a bride-to-be you've known for years. You open it, thinking it's about a dress fitting or a fun bachelorette party. But it's not. It's a bill, a demand for $650. Not as a gift, not for a flight to some exotic location, but as a mandatory fee just to have the asterisk honor of being in her wedding party. Well, that's exactly what happened to this group of friends. And when they dared to question this completely bonkers demand, the bride declared war. She went on a rampage, firing off a series of unhinged emails, not realizing her own typed words would become the receipts that would go viral and logically destroy everything she had planned. This isn't just a story about a bridezilla, it's a masterclass in self-sabotage, all documented in glorious, excruciating detail. Every great disaster story starts with a moment of deceptive calm. The wedding planning for our bride, who we'll call Amelia, seemed to be going just fine. Amelia, a 47-year-old woman, was engaged to her 33-year-old fiancé, and on the surface, everyone was happy for them. The wedding party was assembled, a group of friends and family ready to stand by her side. They were expecting the usual bridesmaid duties: buy a dress, plan a shower, and help keep the bride from having a meltdown. What they weren't expecting was to be treated like investors in a very, very poorly managed startup. The beginning of the end landed in their inboxes under the innocent subject line, "Quick Wedding Update." That cheery subject was a Trojan horse, hiding one of the most audacious requests in wedding history. The email was a work of art in passive-aggressive entitlement, written with that kind of forced cheerfulness that makes your skin crawl. It started with bubbly greetings about how excited she was to share this journey with them. And then, after lulling them into a false sense of security, she dropped the bomb. She explained that to make the wedding as amazing as possible, she just needed everyone to chip in. This wasn't a suggestion, it was a directive. The amount, a cool $650 per person. Now you might be thinking, okay, maybe that covers a wild, all-inclusive bachelorette weekend in Vegas. Oh, you sweet, naive thing, that would be too logical. No, this $650 fee was itemized, and the breakdown is where the story goes from weird to truly insane. According to the email, which later became a legendary Reddit post, the fee was to cover a bit of everything. It included their share of the bachelorette party, yes, but it didn't stop there. It also covered the cost of their bridesmaid dresses, their professional hair and makeup, and other random costs she felt they should bear. She framed it all as a convenience, a way to bundle the costs into one simple payment directly to her. How thoughtful. It's like your landlord saying he's bundling your rent, utilities, groceries, and his car payment into one easy fee. It makes absolutely no sense. Let's really look at this because the logic is just staggering. First, the dresses. Normally, the bride picks a dress or color and the bridesmaids buy it themselves. Annoying but standard. They pay for it, they get to keep it. Amelia, however, wanted them to pay *** for the dresses, which she would then order. This strips away any choice the bridesmaids have and turns the dress into a direct payment to the bride. It feels less like buying a dress and more like paying a wedding tax. Then there's the professional hair and makeup. Often, this is a gift from the bride. If not, it's usually optional. The bride might say, "Hey, I've hired a makeup artist who charges $85 if you're interested." Some will say yes, some will do their own. It's a choice. Amelia wasn't offering a choice. She was mandating it and pre-charging them for the privilege. The bachelorette party costs were also just rolled in, with no details, no budget, no discussion. It was just a number she had decided was fair for a party that hadn't even been planned. The total lack of transparency was astounding. This wasn't a quick update, it was an invoice, a shakedown disguised with exclamation points, and she truly believed she was entitled to every single penny from every person she had asked to stand with her on her special day. The audacity is breathtaking. The members of the wedding party got this email, and to say the least, they were floored. Jaws hit the floor. Group chats must have exploded with "Is she serious?" and "Absolutely not." They were trapped. On one hand, this was their friend. On the other, this was a financial demand so far beyond normal etiquette it felt like a joke. How do you even respond to that? Do you write a long, heartfelt letter explaining your finances? Do you try to reason with her? One bridesmaid chose a path of beautiful, simple, and utterly devastating brevity. Her reply to the multi-paragraph demand for $650 was just 2 words. She replied to the entire group with KTHX. KTHX. That's it, no emotion, no argument, just a cold, dismissive acknowledgement. It was the digital equivalent of a blank stare, and it was perfect. It said everything that needed to be said. "I have received your insane email. I've noted its contents, and I am giving it the exact amount of emotional energy it deserves, which is 0. But our bride, Amelia, did not see it that way. In her world, this wasn't a dismissal. This was a declaration of war. The sheer narcissism it takes to see KTHX as an act of aggression is just astounding. She had just treated her friends like human ATMs with a demand for hundreds of dollars, and she was the one who was offended by a curt response. She genuinely expected replies like, "Oh my gosh, Amelia, thank you for bundling these costs. So convenient. Should I send the $650 by wire transfer?" The fact that they didn't meet her delusion with wild enthusiasm was, to her, a personal attack. While the KTHX bomb was going off, another bridesmaid tried to take a more diplomatic approach. This person, bless her heart, tried to be the voice of reason. She didn't reply all. Instead, she sent a private message to Amelia, gently trying to explain that a $650 fee was a huge financial burden and that people were understandably shocked. This was the correct, adult way to handle it. You take the conflict offline and speak respectfully. Amelia's response: she immediately turned around and put that person on blast to the entire group. She sent another reply-all email, basically screenshotting the private concerns and dismissing them as spam. She wrote something like, "I don't know why I'm getting messages like this, but please, let's take this negativity offline. The irony is so thick you could choke on it." She took a private conversation, made it public, and then condescendingly told everyone to stop being so negative in the group chat. This was a calculated power move. She was making an example out of anyone who questioned her. The message was clear: challenge me and I will publicly humiliate you. This is when the wedding party realized they weren't dealing with a stressed-out bride. They were dealing with a tyrant. The battle lines were drawn. On one side was Amelia and her iron-fisted demand for cash. On the other was a group of friends who were quickly realizing this wedding wasn't a celebration of love, it was a hostage situation, and the ransom was $650. You'd think after the icy KTHX and the private pleas for reason, a normal person might take a moment for self-reflection. Maybe think, perhaps I miscalculated. Maybe demanding hundreds of dollars was a bit much. But Amelia was not a normal person. Faced with dissent, she didn't just double down, she tripled down. She went on an email rampage that would become the stuff of internet legend. This is where it gets so much worse. The next email announced a major change. The wedding planner, a woman named Megan, was gone. The email was blunt: quick update, Megan is no longer our planner. Just like that. No explanation, no kind words. One can only imagine that poor Megan was the one person trying to inject some reality into the situation. She probably told Amelia, "You cannot send your bridesmaids an invoice. That is not how this works." And for doing her job, she was fired. Megan was the first casualty in Amelia's war on logic. With the voice of reason silenced, Amelia was free to let her worst impulses run wild. And boy, did they. The next email contained the most chaotic update yet. She announced she was changing the wedding date, not by a day or two. She was moving it to a weekday. But wait, there's more. She was also changing the location to an entirely different state. Let's just pause and appreciate the sheer madness of this. She told her wedding party, who she already demanded $650 from, that the wedding was now on a random Tuesday in another state. This meant taking multiple vacation days instead of just a weekend. It meant booking last-minute flights and hotels, adding hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars in extra costs on top of the insane $650 fee. This move screamed, "My wedding is the single most important event in the universe, and your jobs, budgets, and personal lives are completely irrelevant." At this point, the wedding party began to drop like flies. People started formally backing out, citing the impossible logistics and insulting financial demands. Any sane person would see this mass exodus as a sign that their wedding was collapsing, but Amelia lived in a reality of her own making. This brings us to the most unhinged email of all. As people dropped out, Amelia kept them on the group email chain. She just crossed their names out. Imagine getting an email about a wedding you are no longer in, only to see your name in the TIF field with a black line struck through it. It was unbelievably petty, a digital wall of shame. She was essentially saying, "Look at these traitors. Look at these people who abandoned me. Let their crossed-out names serve as a reminder of their disloyalty." And in these same emails, she'd carry on as if nothing was wrong, talking about new, exciting plans with that same forced cheerfulness, while the recipient list looked like a redacted government document. She was the captain of the Titanic, giddily rearranging deck chairs while the ship was breaking in half, all while scrawling the names of drowned passengers onto a naughty list. The delusion was complete. The emails were no longer just updates. They were a live blog of a complete and total breakdown. Hey friends, please like this video and leave a comment with your impressions. This will be a great help. Thank you. We never tire of reminding you, it's all thanks to you. Okay, I have to stop right here. We have a bride firing planners, moving her wedding to a weekday in another state, and keeping a public list of friends who have abandoned her. This is a 5-alarm dumpster fire of entitlement. And if you're as hooked on this train wreck as I am, and you want to see more stories of entitlement getting exactly what it deserves, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button right now. And ring the bell, because you're not going to want to miss what happens when these receipts finally go public. Every villain's downfall is brought about by their own pride, and for Amelia, her unhinged emails were her undoing. Someone in that dwindling, tormented group of friends finally hit their breaking point. They had been financially solicited, publicly shamed, and logistically tortured. They had the receipts, a treasure trove of digital evidence, and they decided it was time for the world to see. They took the entire email chain, from the $650 demand to the crossed-out names, and posted it on Reddit. Specifically, to the Our Wedding Shaming subreddit, a corner of the internet dedicated to exposing the most outrageous behavior in wedding planning. It was the perfect place for Amelia's story to find an audience, and it absolutely did. The post, reportedly titled something like "Wedding Date Changed Last Minute to a Weekday in Another State," went nuclear. The story was so jaw-droppingly awful, so perfectly packaged with evidence, that it became one of the most iconic posts in the subreddit's history, pulling in an incredible 54,000 upvotes. In the world of Reddit, that is a mega-viral hit. The comments section was a glorious symphony of outrage. People were tearing Amelia apart, but they were doing it using her own words against her. They howled with laughter at her interpreting KTHX as a declaration of war. They expressed deep sympathy for Megan, the fired wedding planner and martyr for the cause of common sense. Commenters called the situation a nightmare and a train wreck in slow motion. Many said they wouldn't just decline to attend, they'd block the bride's number and never speak to her again. The story was so compelling that it quickly broke containment from Reddit. YouTube creators like me picked it up. News articles were written. The saga of the $650 bride became a viral phenomenon. Amelia didn't just have a few angry friends anymore. She had the entire internet pointing and laughing at her. This was the logical destruction promised in the title. The receipts, her own words, typed by her own hands, were now public domain. She had tried to control the narrative and shame her friends into submission, but by putting her crazy in writing, she gave them the ultimate weapon. They didn't have to argue, they just had to show people what she wrote. The internet became the judge, jury, and executioner, and the verdict was unanimous. Amelia was guilty of extreme entitlement, and her wedding was the price she had to pay. So what happens when your wedding plans become a viral meme for all the wrong reasons? Simple, they disintegrate. The public shaming wasn't just online, it had real-world consequences that brought Amelia's fantasy crashing down. First, the handful of people still clinging on, maybe out of loyalty or fear, were now armed with the validation of 54,000 strangers. Seeing the universal outrage confirmed that they weren't the crazy ones. Amelia was. The last vestiges of her wedding party vanished. There was no one left to stand beside her, no one to wear the dresses she demanded they pay for, no one to get the mandatory hair and makeup. The wedding, as she envisioned it, was functionally destroyed. It's unclear if any event happened at all, but the grand affair she was trying to finance on the backs of her friends was canceled by a jury of her peers. She was left with a non-refundable deposit on a venue in another state for a Tuesday, a fired planner, and a contact list full of crossed-out names. She had alienated the very people she claimed to love. And you have to wonder about the groom. He was 33, a good bit younger than the 47-year-old Amelia. Did he know about these emails? Was he a silent partner in this madness? Or was he a victim himself, swept up in the chaos and too afraid to speak up? We never hear his side, but his silence is deafening. He was either a fool or a coward, and in the end, he was set to marry a woman who had become a pariah. The ultimate fallout for Amelia wasn't just a ruined party. It was the complete demolition of her reputation and her friendships. The internet may have a short memory, but a story this juicy and well-documented tends to stick around. She didn't just lose a wedding, she lost friends, respect, and became a cautionary tale. A forever Googleable example of what happens when your ego writes checks your character can't cash. She wanted a perfect wedding, but her pursuit of it was so ugly she destroyed any chance of a beautiful memory. So that's the story, the tragic, hilarious, and absolutely bonkers tale of a bride who thought a $650 mandatory fee was a quick update and that KTHX was a declaration of war. It proves that the best weapon against delusion is the truth in writing. Amelia thought she was planning a wedding, but she was really just writing a viral script for her own downfall. She provided the plot, the dialogue, and the evidence. The internet just provided the audience. She logically destroyed her own wedding by simply being herself and, crucially, documenting every step. It's a powerful lesson. Your friends are not your employees or your financiers. If you treat them that way, don't be surprised when you find yourself standing alone at the altar, or more likely, in the smoldering ruins of what used to be your wedding plans. Now I have to ask you, what would you have done? If you got that email, would you have paid the $650 to keep the peace? Would you have been the one to send the KTHX? Or would you have leaked the whole thing to the internet? Let me know your honest thoughts in the comments below. I can't wait to read them.